Hey guys, this is John with CheatSheetPros.com, and today we're going to take a look at some NFL Week 2 DFS shells. So what I'm going to start doing is each week do a shell video and a shell article and just give you some rough core group of guys to put together to build your lineups. I don't like giving out a full lineup because you see a lot of websites doing this, and then you've got 100 people with the exact same lineup, and then you're chopping whatever prize you manage to cash. So what I want to do is give you a shell of a lineup that's focused around a stack, and then give you some options that you can kind of mix and match and plug in there to build your own lineups. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is our NFL Week 2 cheat sheet. The first thing I do is I want to get an idea of some good plays that could possibly fill into my lineup before I go in and look at stacks. I did post an article on the website, CheatSheetPros.com, with screenshots if you prefer to read that and see something and click on it instead of listening to it. So I wanted to also do a video because I've had some people on YouTube who they don't want to go read it, they just want to listen to it and move on. So I'm going to try to do both this week. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the target tab. So let me make sure you can see this on your screen. Okay. All right, so these are the targets. So on our NFL cheat sheets, we're going to have this every week. So this is week 1, this will be week 2, and we'll go all the way through. But it's basically the targets last week for every game. So you can see Darren Waller had 19 targets, and then Cooper 16, Tyreek Hill 15, Lamb 14, etc., etc. And I think the screenshot I put in the article is 9 and up. But you can see it goes all the way down to the guys that had one measly target. If they had 0, I pulled them off because there's no reason to list a name on here with a 0. So let's focus on 9 and up. So some of the more notable ones that jump out at me, I don't know who in the hell KJ Osborne is, but he got 9 targets, so I imagine he's dirt cheap for DFS if you want to put him in there as a flyer. Jefferson, pretty standard. Marvin Jones, 9 targets. Chenault, 9 targets, and then DJ Chark, 12 targets. So Jacksonville threw a ton. So Jacksonville guys are some wide receivers we could target. So if you're going to do a 3-max, maybe you do one with DJ Chark, one with Chenault, and one with Marvin Jones. And then if your stack and your other guys go off, you're like, hey, I have 3 lineups, one with each one. If one of them catches 2 touchdowns, I'm going to have a shot. Sterling Shepard looks like he's back and healthy. He got 9 targets and did a lot with it. McCaffrey, yeah. Jamal Williams, surprisingly, the RB2 for Detroit popped off with 9 targets. Renfro, Myers, Deontay, TJ Hawkinson, 10 targets. We knew he was going to get a bunch. Cupp, Thielen, Robinson, Swift. So this surprised me. DeAndre Swift, I have none of him in season long, and I didn't play him at all last week, but he had 11 targets. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. And what's even crazier, where did Jamal Williams, the other running back, got 9 targets. So between the 2 running backs, they had 20 targets. That is just nuts. Deebo Samuel, he went nuts with 12 targets and like 180, 190 yards. Shark, surprisingly, in one of my higher stakes leagues, he was a free agent this morning when waivers ran. Mike Williams actually got some targets and started to go through it. These 2 are great to stack because it's such a narrow tree. Keenan Allen is just 10 to 15 targets a game. Mike Williams should get up in that range. And then Buffalo's the same way. Look, you got 2 guys up here on the same team. That's a perfect stack. Take Allen, Diggs, Beasley. You have 27 targets between the 2. Beasley's cheap. Diggs is going to be more expensive. They're going to average out. Tampa's a little tougher because you've got 3 main guys there, and then you saw Evans not do anything, and then Gronk got involved in the mix. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. But Godwin with 14 targets, it's a pretty solid fill-in. Dallas had 2 of the top 4. We had CeeDee Lamb with 15. And then we had Amari Cooper with 16. So if you look back at the targets that Amari Cooper's had when Dak is there, it's crazy. It was like 13, 17, 15, 16. So 16 targets does not surprise me. Waller, he's basically their wide receiver 1 in a tight end spot, so 19 targets. Those are some guys that I would look at plugging into DFS, and you can always reference back to this, but that's the first thing that I do is see where were the targets before we see the values. The next thing I'll do is I'll pull this tab up, and it goes through, let me open it up. It goes through, and so what this is going to do, let me get off this game. Let me pick, let's say, Cleveland. So my slam dunk running back play for this week that I'm going to have in probably every lineup is Nick Chubb, and let me show you why. So flipping through this, we have Cleveland and Houston, so we have a big favorite, 12.5 points. So Vegas thinks Cleveland's going to likely get the lead, run the clock, pound the ball. But here in our running back finder in the trenches, Cleveland has the #1 offensive line against the 30th defensive line. So they are going to have a lot of success running the ball. So Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt are probably going to have a heyday. Runs of 5 to 10 yards, Cleveland ranks 6th. Again, it's only 1 week, but, they were pretty similar to that last year. Houston, 29th. So if they're giving up 5 and 10-yard runs all day, what do you think Cleveland's going to do? Chubb's going to run for over the century mark and probably 2 touchdowns is what I would bet. I'm going to see if I can get a prop for that. And again, Houston, 31st at QB pressure. So Baker's going to have all the time in the world if he does want to throw it. So I really like Nick Chubb here. I think he's a slam dunk play. Houston gave up 4.8 yards per carry, which ranked 24th after last week. They did good on offense. They moved the ball, but they couldn't stop anybody to save their life. So I see a big Nick Chubb game coming and Kareem Hunt for GPP if you want to pivot off. But anyways, this tab's going to show you everything. We got the players. We got how they rank QB-wise. We have stacks. We have DVP to positions. We have all their projected stats, both teams. And you can come down here and you see the fantasy points per week. Now, we've only got 1 week, but you can quickly look here and say, okay, Chubb did good, Kareem did good, Baker, Jarvis Landry, Beckham was out, so Landry 19.4. Beckham's already been ruled out this game after I posted the sheet, so Landry would be another decent play to go with. And even Njoku at 10.6, he's probably dirt cheap. So that's typically how I start building a stack. So I find my stacks on this quick stack tab, which we're going to play with the majority of the time, and then I come over here and I'll look and say, okay, who else has done well? Is there anyone else that's competing for targets? And then, break it down from there. So our quick stack tab, there's a tutorial on this, so I'm not going to go through the how to do it, but come down here. So my preferred stack is a QB, 2 pass catchers from that same team to stack with the quarterback, and I like to do at least 1 run back from the other team. If you do 2, you're pretty much in a game stack. Your idea in this is you want a close game that's a shootout, goes back and forth, possibly goes to overtime, and just generates a lot of points. So the different things we can do with this tab is we can come over here and we can sort by cost of stack. So we can go high to low. So let's say we want to find the cheapest stack with a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and an opponent wide receiver 1. Well, you start here and it's going to show you the deal. If you want, say, the highest projected one, you can go over here and say, okay, that's Seattle, and then Tampa, Dallas, Arizona, Minnesota, pretty chalky. If you want to see value based on what they're projected at in their salary, you can sort by value. So the top 3 over 3x are going to be Stafford, Rodgers, Baker, and Winston. And then I love this. This is something new I added this week is targets. So total targets in this stack. Now, if someone didn't play, it's going to just drop these couple little dashes and we're going to move on. But we had 2 that had over 40 targets, Dallas and the Chargers. So this would give you a stack of Dak, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Keenan Allen. I love that. It's expensive at $27,000. And then you've got Herbert, Allen, Mike Williams, and Amari Cooper. It's still expensive, but that's going to give you the highest stack per 1K. So you can sort here and see how many targets per 1,000 are you getting. So the higher number, the better. So 1615, you're getting 1.5 targets for every $1,000 in your stack. Down to this one, which Winston only threw the ball, I think, 26 times and completed 20 of them, something like that. So he did not have a lot of targets. So this category really wouldn't matter for him. And then their average fantasy points, which this was basically last week, so this is going to tell you what stack did the best. Well, of course, it was Dallas, and then Chargers, and then Philadelphia. And so what jumps out at me here is 27, 26-6, 22-7. So we have a cheap stack that did really well last week with a decent amount of targets. And this is going to be Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Rager, and Deebo Samuel. That's a pretty good run back, and it's inexpensive. It's going to give you a lot of money to spend. And you can even sort this by value. So we have 2 that were over the 4, and it was Dallas and Philadelphia. And then it goes on down to, of course, the Packers stack didn't do anything. But what's fun about this is, like, let's say we're going to go stack value. We're going to sort by the best value. You know, we got some decent ones, 22, 23, 23,500. But say you're going through here and you're like, you know what? I don't like Paris Campbell. I do like Wentz and Pittman this week. Click in here and change this to the wide receiver 3. Okay, Wentz, Pittman, Pascal. Say, okay, I like that better. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you an example. And then run it back. You know, do I want Cooper Kupp? You know, maybe you want to go Robert Woods, or maybe you want to go down to the opponent tight end. And say I'm going to run it back with Higbee. So I'm going to do Wentz, Pittman, Pascal, and Higbee, 18,000. That's dirt cheap. That's going to leave you a ton of money. And it's going to be contrarian because most people are going to do the wide receiver 1 and 2 and the opponent wide receiver 1. So if you mix a tight end in there, you can get some cheap stacks. And again, you can go up here and sort it and say, okay, now we got a stack down here of 16-2. Now again, it's Chris Hogan and Dan Arnold. I don't feel confident with them. But I could get behind like a Ruggs, Renfro, Ebron stack for like a dirt cheap punt. Or doing, you know, one of these other ones. I mean, Sutton, Patrick. I don't really care for O'Shaughnessy. But let's go back here. Another one. So my favorite 2 is the QB, the wide receiver 1. I like to have this at the wide receiver 2. But if you want to save a little money, if everything you're looking at is expensive, do wide receiver 1, tight end 1, and then run this back with the opponent. You could do wide receiver 1, 2, or 3, depending upon how contrarian you want to be. Now, the opponent wide receiver 1 is going to be the chalkiest the majority of the time. The 2 and the 3, you're going to get a little bit more contrarian in those. So let's take a look at some of these. So let's just look at one that's a stack value projected with wide receiver 1 and tight end 1. So this is going to give you Rodgers, Adams, Tanyan, run it back with Tyrell Williams. It's decent. It's cheap enough. I don't mind it. Tanyan didn't do anything last week, and Tyrell Williams I'm not a big fan of. I love this one, though. Stafford, Kupp, Higbee. A lot of people will go Kupp, Woods. So if you go Kupp, Higbee, that's going to give you something a little contrarian. And not a big fan of Pittman, but you could flip this over to, I like going over to Hines. I think that's what I posted in the article, to be a little contrarian, and it's cheap too. You get this down to less than 20,800. And then we got Wentz, Pittman, Cox, Kupp. No, don't mind the Bridgewater. Baker, Landry, Hooper, Cooks. That's not bad. That's fairly inexpensive. Darnold, I don't really want to run with. This is a sneaky one, or might not be sneaky, it'd be fun. Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Gerald Everett, and A.J. Brown. So basically anyone who's stacking with Lockett, you'd be contrarian on, or you could do Wilson, Lockett, Everett, Brown. So you kind of get the idea of what you're going to do. I really like this one here. Brady, Evans, Gronk, Calvin Ridley for 25-2. I may switch this up. Evans didn't do much, so you could do Brady, Godwin, Gronk, Ridley for 25-7. I don't mind that. That's pretty good. And then you've got Ryan, Gage, Pitts, Evans. That would be a real contrarian one if you fade Ridley. So if you do a buck stack and run back with Ridley, and then come over here to Atlanta, and then fade Ridley and go Ryan, Gage, Pitts, that would be somewhat sneaky. So if you're doing multiple lineups, you can get a little bit more contrarian. And you get an idea kind of how to run down these and go through them. If you just want to do a single team, a QB and 2 pass catchers, you can use this table. It's the exact same, but I found myself really loving this one where I can choose the opponent run back and then get a cost of the stack and stack projection. And I'm always adding to this table. So the next line I'm going to add is going to be a percentage of salary. So it'll tell you like what you have left, average, et cetera, and kind of go from there. So to show you some of the shells that I put together, let me blow this up a little bit. So I've got 2 pizzas in the oven and one of them caught fire. So I had to run away before I started this video. So right here, I love this for cash. This is the lineup I put in my cash, or in my DFS article. This was the cash game lineup I recommended. So it's doing a Dallas stack. So we have Dak, Cooper, Lamb, Schultz, running it back with Keenan Allen, and then we're putting in Nick Chubb, our running back lock of the week. And then I just put Steelers D as a placeholder. it's $3,000. That gives you room if you want to go down to the 24 to 2600 range. You can free up some money in your running back and flex. Again, I don't like to give up full lineups, but I like to give you a shell. I don't like this for GPP because you have 3 pass catchers for Dallas, and that's a lot to win a GPP. 2 is optimal. So Cooper and Lamb are probably your best 2, but Schultz I like because I think a lot of people are going to go the other way with Jarwin because he's projected higher, and the Chargers are really bad against the tight end, and I think Schultz caught 6 of 6 passes last week, so he would be a good contrarian one. So even if you wanted to cross out and go Cooper Schultz, run back with Keenan, or go Lamb Schultz, run back with Keenan, that would give you some different options for GPP. But for cash, I like putting all 3 of them in there because if, say, Cooper goes off and Schultz goes off, you have them both. But if it's still Cooper and Lamb, you spent $3.3K on your tight end, no big deal. And he's still going to get you 2x, maybe 3x, maybe better. But it gives you a bigger net to cast. And Keenan Allen's a great run back in PPR. We love Chubb. It gives you basically $9,000 to fill out a running back and a flex. So typically, if I get, like a Damian Harris or Hines from Indy or one of these pass-catching running backs in here, I can have a decent flex, or I can pay up and get a stud running back and then, get one of them $3,500 wide receivers like a Terrence Marshall or Elijah Moore or something like that that's got some upside to plug in there. But anyways, that's one to look at. And then the next one I had, this was, I think, the GPP lineup I posted in the article. And what I like about this one, let me blow it up so you can see it a little more. So what I love about this is, this is a Ram stack run back with Indy. So we have Stafford, we have Cooper Kupp, or you could go Robert Woods and save a few $100. And then I went Higbee. Now, most people are going to go Stafford, Kupp, Woods. That's what everybody sees on TV. That's what they know. Kupp and Woods, that's what they're going to stack. So this gives you something a little bit more contrarian, going with Kupp and Higbee. I really like Higbee as a tight end. He's going to have one of these weeks where he just explodes. So I like putting him in there. He's 4,100. It's cheap, and then I don't have to pick a tight end. And the running back, Indy doesn't have a ton of pass catching options. Pascal, Pittman, and I can't remember the other guy, but they're dirt cheap. Pascal was 4,400, so I just picked him in there, but you could use any of them. I mean, they're perfectly fine. And I went with Hines. Most people are going to do Taylor because he's the RB1. That's who everybody drafted on their fantasy team. They know he's a stud. But he's, I think, around 7,000, give or take, somewhere between that 772 range. But you can get Hines, who had 8 targets last week, for $4,700. I mean, if he gets you 10 points, that's good. And look how much money you got left. This is what's amazing here. $7,133 to fill out 3 spots. So you could fit Chubb in here. You could fit another stud wide receiver and still have money for a 5 or 6K flex. So you've got a lot of ability. I mean, you could put Devontae Adams in here. You could put Nick Chubb. You could go with a cheap running back, go 2 more stud wide receivers. There's just so many different things you could do when you have large amounts of money. So I like to give you a GPP stack with a big chunk of money left over because that's fun. So what I'll do if I get in like a 20 max is I'll build a shell like this, and I'll do 4 or 5 of them and enter them each 4 or 5 times, and then I'll mix these 3 guys. I might do like Chubb, Devontae Adams, and Player X, and then I might do like a Damian Harris and another mid receiver, and then go Dalvin Cook, and just kind of mix and match those. And then I watch the stack in the game, and if I can get the stack to go off, then I can sweat these other 3 guys. Let's see a couple other real quick that I had, and then we'll look at some players and wind this video down. So this is one of the GPP stacks. It's basically, we've already talked about it. It's a Dallas stack with a Charger run back. So Dak, Cooper, Schultz, run back with Keenan. We've already talked about that one. That leaves you $5,800 per player. And sorry if you hear my daughter yell in the background. I don't know what she's doing. She's fighting with the dog or something. Here's another GPP one. So we got Garoppolo, who's only 5,700, and he had a monster game last week. And then with Deebo Samuel, who, I mean, he set career highs across the board. What did we say? He had 10 or 12 targets. he was somewhere around 180, 190 yards. I mean, it was just nuts. So doing a Garoppolo Samuel stack is so cheap. I mean, you've got to throw one. And if you're doing 20 lineups, have a Jimmy Grapes and a Debo Samuel stack. And then I went Kittle. And I found this doing this stack sheet over here by doing the QB, wide receiver 1, tight end 1. I saw Jimmy Grapes, Debo Samuel, and Kittle, and I was like, yeah, let me run that back. I love Devontae Smith. I had him in a ton of flexes on DK last week, so seeing him catch his first pass as a touchdown was fun. But doing this stack, it's inexpensive. Well, I guess Kittle's kind of expensive, so it does leave you about $5,700 per player. So you do have to find a little bit of value here. And I like going with one of the lower wide receiver 3s, taking 2 decent running backs that you can depend on, and then taking an upside guy in the flex. But this is another lineup that you can build on. One of the other ways, I can't remember if we went over this or not. So one of the other ways I find players is I come over here to the main sheet, and when you open this sheet, it's always sorted by GPP algo. And so I just select out the players. So like, let's say we're going to look at running backs. So we're going to filter out running backs sorted by GPP algo. So we've got McCaffrey, Mixon, Montgomery, Swift, Chubb. Chubb we love. We already discussed him. And I'm going to look kind of at the prices and kind of what they did last week and the ownership and kind of get an idea of some guys that we can use. Now, what jumps out at me here is Jamal Williams. We already looked at his targets. He had a massive amount of targets last week. He's cheap, $5,200. He's not projected to do anything, so he's not going to show up in a ton of optimizers. I'm not worried about him being popular. They've got him projected between 1% and 2%. I fluff these up just a little bit because they're always really low. And I'm not really looking saying, oh, he's going to be 2% owned. What I'm looking at is if I'm looking at him and Carson, and they have Carson at 14 and him at 2, and let's say Carson comes out at 18 and he comes out at 7, that's fine. I just want to know Carson's, twice as owned as Jamal Williams. So Jamal Williams would be your GPP play, and then these other guys who are higher owned would be more cash game plays. Of course, McCaffrey, $9,900, but I mean, 3x is 30 points. That's not going to win a GPP, so I don't like playing him. I hardly ever do. Mixon, though, for almost $3,000 less, put up the same amount of points last week and got a ton of volume, so that interests me because I like having the $3,000 left over. I'm not a fan of Swift, but he did put up 24.4 DK points last week. Come down here, love Chubb. Don't care what the ownership is. I'm going to eat it and be overweight on the field. Melvin, Gordon, and Daryl Henderson. These two interest me. They're both less than 6K, so these are high 5K running backs that you can squeeze into your lineups. And, I mean, it's not gaudy ownership, so that's why I like mixing them in and playing them, especially if you're doing a 20-max tournament. You got 4 and roughly 8%. They both did well last week. They both got some volume. I think Gordon's a good play until, what's-his-face takes over that backfield. He slipped my mind. Cook, he's always a good play, but again, 9,100, he put up 20 points. It's hard to get a lot of value. They're more cash games with high floors. Damian Harris, I really like. He only had 15 points last week, but he didn't get in the end zone. If he would have got in the end zone, he would have been over 20 points. But he had 23 carries at $5,400 against a team that can't stop the run. That's pretty solid play for me, and the ownership's not even in double digits, so I like that. But this is kind of what I do to pick players as I go down look, and then once we get some more data, I'll look at the DVP position so you can look at like the ranks. So if we come over here, okay, Jacksonville, they gave up 36.4 points to the running back position, which was 30th, so that kind of pumps Melvin up a little bit. But with 1 week, I don't really look at it a ton. And then we go over here, we look at wide receivers, kind of do the same thing, sorted by algo. Cooper, Hill, Kupp, Lockett, Debo. Debo had a massive game at 35, and he's less than 7K. Cooper Kupp's only 6K. So we have some flex room here in these receivers. Jamar Chase is only 5K, and he looked really good last week. And then do the same thing, bounce over here to tight ends, see what you got that you can plug in. Tight ends, I'm usually pay or punt. Gronk moves up in the highest algo one. I mean, 29 points in the first week, and he's $4,700. He's going to jump up there. Kelsey, number 2. I mean, he's always going to be up there with just his production alone, but he's $8,500. TJ Hawkinson, I love him, but he's not the main slate guy. I did put him in the article in case you're doing a showdown. I like him as a captain if it saves you some money. Waller, he's a stud, but he's expensive. And then these guys, when you get down to like Noah, Fant, Gerald Everett, Komet, Higbee, you're going to be in this same like 3 to 4-ish K range. Kittle had a bunch of targets, didn't do much, only 10 points last week. But this is kind of what I will do is I'll flip through and, make a list of guys that I want to put in there in my lineups, get my stacks, see what money I got left over. But anyways, this is what I've got right now for week 2. Hopefully that helps you build some lineups. What I'm going to do going forward is do a shells article and give you a bunch of different shells for cash games and GPPs and focused around different stacks. So follow us on Twitter, CheatSheetPros. Follow us on YouTube and check out the website. We've always got a video or an article or sports betting picks or something going. So anyways, have a good weekend. Have a good week 2, and I will likely get another video out before the week is up and get some more plays going. Thanks.